Hey, it is Editing Ashley, and yes, I am in the beginning of this video. I wanted to let you know this is a long video. I give a lot more examples than what I included in the video, believe it or not. Yeah, I think I talked for about 3.5 hours. And honestly, there's still a lot of things I have problems with in the video. One being, there's definitely sometimes I use wording that I don't like, that I don't agree with. Like at one point I said that it's not okay to say racist things, when the reality is it's not okay to believe racist things. Pointing out to someone they shouldn't say racist things might be the first step toward helping them realize the reason it's not okay is because it's not okay to feel that way. I also apologize that I look like a crazy hot mess in the video. It had been a really long day, and I just kind of hit the point where I had to hit record. I just needed to make the video or it was never going to get made. And I was never going to get out of my own head and out of my own way to make it and to take that first step. So I'm sorry about a lot of things, about the production quality as well as some of the things that I even say in it. Editing it has been painful, grueling, and because I really, so many, I wish I could refilm it and make it look nicer and better scripted, but that isn't what the reality of it is. And I guess the reality of talking about racism is that we're gonna stumble over our own words and we're gonna say the wrong thing sometimes, so we might as well just start talking. During the days that it's been taking me to edit this, I've been editing now for 3 days, my husband and I end up having a very accidental conversation with somebody, a several hour long conversation, where we found out someone who we've known for quite a while is actually racist. We didn't anticipate that. He doesn't see himself as being racist. It was really making me confront the things I even talked about in this video, about needing to talk with people and to call them on philosophies they're carrying and sharing that perpetrate hate and pain against other people. It was important for it not to be an argument, but for it to be a conversation, because people shut down when you start arguing. And I just thought I would go ahead and make some apologies for anything that comes across as white saviorism in here, because there are definitely some real cringeworthy things that I said in this video I shot 3 days ago, and there's no way to edit it and make me seem truly woke, because I am where I am in this, but I'm trying to make a difference in myself. Because this is a long video, and below you will see timestamps. One final thing. In this video, I take a lot of time taking accountability for things and admitting to some racisms within myself and my own behaviors, as well as behaviors of the people adjacent to me in life. I don't really know if it's my place to have even called out racisms I've experienced from people adjacent to me. But it's part of telling the story that we white people travel in circles of racism that we are able to overlook. It's sometimes so covert, we like to pretend that it's not there, when it is. Racism's around us all the time. And that's my point in talking about those things. But the most important thing is I address a lot of those things, and never once do I say I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I want to say that I'm sorry for blatant racism against Asian culture, where if at the time in my life I had had Asian friends, I would have realized I would have thought about it and realized what I was doing was wrong, and instead, because I didn't, my white privilege allowed me to ignore that. And I'm sorry for silence, because as cliche as it sounds, silence is violence. I'm sorry for the silence that I've held, the space that I've given racists to be vocal. I'm sorry. The video is not what I wanted it to be, but if I didn't hit record, I wasn't going to make it happen. So Catch you guys in a much more uplifting video next time. Welcome back. Hi again. If you've been here before, and if you haven't, my name is Ashley Sue, and it's been a long time. Surprise! We're parents! That's part of why I haven't been around. The other part is because even before we were blessed with the birth of our baby bear, I was really questioning my channel. I was questioning my life. I've avoided coming back for a long time. I've struggled with defining what I'm doing here and what this channel is supposed to be about. But then everything happened in 2020. 2020 has been a messy bitch. I'm not here for that, but none of us are here for it, and yet here we are. And I guess ultimately maybe this is what we're all here for. Maybe this is a really defining moment in time. I'm not trying to go all Tati Westbrook, coronavirus, rebirthing concept here, because that is an innately privileged thing to say, but frankly the entire origin of my channel is from a really privileged place, because when I first started playing with makeup and wanted to do that exploration on YouTube, I didn't even think about, I was new to makeup, so I didn't even think about how race plays into makeup. I knew there's luxury makeup and drugstore makeup, but I didn't really think about how much economics, socioeconomics play a part in makeup, much less the deep complications of race in makeup. And the fact that I was oblivious to that is telling in itself. I did want to talk about shit. What do I want to talk about? This is crazy. And that's why I finally just had to hit record. The amount of comments and notes that I have written on what to say is truly overwhelming to me, and frankly completely ridiculous. Do I want to start with 2020 or do I want to start with 2018? You don't have to be someone who watches YouTube to understand that 2020 is a dumpster fire and the world is burning down around us. As a white woman, I probably have no business doing a video talking about racism, because there are amazing educators out there. There's all types of YouTubers, of documentaries, of books, of articles, of journals, of Instagrammers who educate on what racism is, what systemic racism is, how we as white people play a part in it without even being aware that we have or are. I really want to address my own racism and my own racist past, and that's not an easy thing to do. It's not a comfortable thing to do. For me, I actually started conceptualizing this video was when we watched video of men hunting down Ahmaud Arbery while he jogged and murdering him. I knew then that as white people, most of us are in probably pretty deep denial over our own part in racism and our own benefits to systemic racism, and we don't see it, so it doesn't exist. We don't live it, so it must not be real. We do see other sides of it, where we're getting called bad names even though we feel like we didn't do anything, where we feel like we're being held accountable for slavery that our great-grandparents may not have even participated in, so we get defensive. And we can't. We've got to get over that. If we're going to play a part, watching Ahmaud Arbery being murdered by a couple KKK-style racist vigilantes, being outraged by that isn't changing anything. We have to do something, and we may not know what that is. I don't know what that is. At the very, very end of May, so a little over a month ago, we watched, as a nation, 2 brutal, gruesome videos in one day. One of a very privileged white woman, Amy Cooper, threatening the life of Christian Cooper in Central Park because she didn't want to put her dog on a damn leash. And that's absolutely insane and infuriating and frustrating that she weaponized his skin color against him, and she knew it. She knew that being a white-skinned woman gave her the privilege of weaponizing his genitals and most of all his skin color against him. That's horrific. That video made me sick on my stomach. And then hours later, we as a nation watched George Floyd take his very last breaths. We watched him in the last minutes of his life be murdered by a police officer who saw no value in George Floyd as a man, as a human, as life. The murderer probably would not have done that to an animal, to a dog. And he thought it was okay to do that to George Floyd. You've seen the video, you have your own reaction to it. I don't need to re-encapsulate all that, so I'm sorry for that. But that was a really horrible day as a nation. And in the days that followed, we saw an outpouring of anger and frustration and emotions that went in a whole lot of different directions. Some of that is still playing out very publicly. For some people, they're going to cap it as quick as they can and pretend that racism is over. It will happen again and again and again and again and again and again and again if we don't do something about it. We as white people have to stop saying things like this happens to white people too. We have to stop holding up the banner of whataboutism. None of that all that is a shield to continue being in denial and continue being defensive and continue preventing progress, preventing change. All it is complacency. We should have been having this conversation since before we lost Trayvon Martin. We should have had this conversation before we lost Tamir Rice. As if losing black men and black women weren't enough, we're losing and watching our black children being murdered. If what I'm saying about white and being white is upsetting you and triggering you, please stick around. Please stick around and listen to what I have to say, because maybe you'll understand how being white, I don't hate myself for being white. I don't hate white people. I have to figure out how to acknowledge how my being white plays a part in the problems happening, how I can play my part. And it means accepting the fact that I am immediately given power that I don't deserve. Honestly, as a white person, I'm scared. I'm scared that I will mess up. I'm scared that I'll say the wrong thing. I'm scared that I will miss the big picture. I'm scared that I will sound defensive, or even worse, actually be defensive, or even worse yet, make racism somehow about me. But I know that I have to start somewhere. Finally, I'm afraid of not saying something because I know that I've been silent for a really long time. So I'm going to start by talking to my white family, my white friends, white strangers, about my own legacy of racism, whether it was intentional or out of ignorance. First, I'm actually going to address my childhood. In my childhood, racism was really prevalent. And I grew up in a small town in North Carolina. It's much bigger now, including in diversity and the way people think. But I can actually remember the first time I realized I was supposed to see a difference in people who were a different color. I wasn't even in school yet. Was at a family member's house. A family member middle school age, I think, had pulled out a yearbook. And I was by far the baby of the family. So I was trying so hard to fit in with the big kids. I didn't understand the fact they could be trying to joke on me, much less what the joke even would be about. Again, I hadn't even started elementary school myself, but I remember them pointing to someone. I don't even remember what the person looked like. I just remember all the little black and white photos inside of the yearbook. And them pointing to one and saying, do you think he's cute? Do you think they're cute? Do you think they're cute? And me saying yes to all of them. Oh yeah, cute. Because I wanted so badly to be like the big kids. And I remember this family member bursting out laughing and saying that I was a lover. And I had not knowingly heard that word before. Or if I had, and I honestly probably had heard that word before, but I didn't know it was a bad word. The way that this family member was laughing at me and saying I was a lover, clearly, if I love that and it's something that he is laughing at me about, and I remember him saying that's gross, then that means that word and those people are bad. But I still didn't even understand what about the person he'd pointed to made them a... You know what? I don't know if this video is going to make any sense at all, or if it's just going to be horrible and cringy, but I know it's dark right now. So let's hang out in my bedroom. Okay, just to go back to my family, which brings me to my dad. And I hate to bring him into this video because my dad is no longer with us. And if he were, he probably wouldn't appreciate me putting him in this video anyhow. So I hate to bring him into it because he has a legacy of his own. I mean, that sounds so stupid. He doesn't have a legacy, but everybody has a legacy. Like, that's the sense I mean. And I'm not trying to disparage that or ruin his by talking about this. So I hope you hear me out. My dad is proof that people change. And I'm not romanticizing him because he's my dad. My dad is proof to me that redemption's possible. My dad is why Dramageddon in 2018, that's why those Dramageddons actually matter to me. It's because I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I want to, and that they change because I saw my dad change. And I know it wasn't lip service. I personally saw his evolution. But when I was growing up, I remember a black family moved in on our street toward the end of the road. And he talked about how all the property values were going to go down because of it. This is the mid-'80s. Once a black family moves in, it's not long before all the white families start moving out. He didn't exactly say it as if that's the right way for it to be, and we wonder why Trayvon Martin was murdered. That's how deeply ingrained some of this stuff is and can be. In high school, his name was Cecil. Hi, Cecil, if you ever hear about this video. Hi! I thought you were really cool, Cecil. You were a really nice guy. We just enjoyed talking, and I don't remember what we would talk about, but we really enjoyed talking. Gave him my phone number, didn't think anything of it bad, because why should I? And I wasn't home when he called. My dad took the message, and my dad, I remember, asked me if Cecil was black, and I refused to answer him because I told him that wasn't important. It wasn't. And he said it was. He said Cecil wasn't allowed to call anymore. And all this from the name Cecil. The name Cecil somehow triggered my dad, and my dad was upset, and I was like, Cecil is my friend. And I didn't tell Cecil. I also know I never called Cecil back. That sucks. Because Cecil didn't do anything wrong, and frankly, neither did I. Until I didn't dig in harder. And I might have been 14, 15. I was old enough to know that I needed to dig in harder on my dad. I needed to tell him that wasn't okay. But my dad's relationship with race is a rather interesting story. He is the defining proof to me that people change and that people who are racist can learn. They can learn otherwise. I've got other family examples too from my childhood. When Magic Johnson was diagnosed with HIV, an uncle made a really gross joke. I didn't even understand the joke. I had to repeat it to my dad, who, interestingly enough, he was so mad. He was so mad that my uncle had told me such a vile joke. My dad explained to me the terms in the joke and why they were absolutely despicable. That joke is seared in my head. I think I've only heard the term used in it maybe 3 times my entire life. And then there was the time that my best friend growing up, her dad, her parents, they are beautiful, amazing people. Oh my God, I hate to even say what I just said. It's so weird to say they're beautiful, amazing people, because they are to me and they are to their children, and I'm sure they are to many other people. But then to turn around and say, however, the dad also made a very unsavory joke to me once upon a time about what the word Pontiac stands for. Not going to explain that. I knew that joke was wrong. Again, that's seared in my head. He told me the joke one time when I was like 12, and I've never heard anyone else say it since. Never. He also, I remember, compared white people to an elevated intelligence species, aliens, and saying that it was obvious that black people have evolved from apes, and that just by looking at white people versus just looking at black people, you can see that we are further evolved. Those are the only 2 things I remember him ever saying that were racist, and I didn't speak up about it then. I was 12 and around 12, and I didn't know what to say. My husband even knows this family, and when I told him those things, he was shocked, because you wouldn't, by knowing the man, you wouldn't think that these are things that he would think. I'm gonna emotional eat now. So growing up, I knew all of these things were wrong because I apparently have a bank inside my head and heart, somewhere in my soul, where I'm storing these overt racism, as ignorant or covert as we might like to play for them to be. They aren't, they weren't, they are overt. Even if a white person is saying it to another white person in the room with no black people around, if a tree falls in the forest, no one's there to hear it. Other white people hearing it is the tree falling. Okay, so let's talk about me. Let's talk about me. It can be hard, obviously, if you're not an overt racist, and you like to think of yourself as a pretty decent person. Most of us do. It can be really hard to look at yourself and see ways that you have acted or thought or said in a racist way. Experiences that I've had have given me pause to question myself. You know, when I was talking about my childhood, most of that's not on me. So when I was a junior in high school, I was a cheerleader. I know I'm giving all these anecdotes, but there's a point for it. I was at cheerleading camp, and there were 2 girls on the team who were super close friends. We were all, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of us in a gymnasium. And I guess Tiffany had pointed to a girl across the room and said to Rosalind that black girl was really pretty. And Rosalind and Tiffany, they were really good friends. And Rosalind called her on that. Why does she have to be black? I think we were supposed to be preparing for cheerleading camp activities. And instead, the 2 of them got into this very heated conversation for a moment. And I just kind of froze to take it in. Rosalind was like, why does she have to be black? Why did you say that black girl? And Tiffany was like, I'm explaining which girl I'm talking about. I said she's pretty. How is any of this wrong? Rosalind pointed out If you've been talking about the girl next to her, would you have said that white girl over there is pretty? Since then, thank you, Rosalind, because I catch myself doing the same thing, which means in my head, white is normal, right? And that somehow the black man standing in front of me at the grocery store, that's a part of the story somehow. And it's not. That doesn't make any sense. So I thank you, Rosalind. I actually do catch myself before I say it, but it makes me upset that I even think like that it is a component to telling the story, because it's not. It doesn't make sense. And other family members and friends do the same thing. I don't know if other races do that or if that's something specific to white people doing, but it sucks. And you might think it's innocuous. It's not. It's a small chip in a rather large problem. And I saw the movie Crash. I think it came out around 2000. And it is all about race and all the ways that we're racist that we don't necessarily realize. And I think it really spoke to white privilege and the ability to overlook race. When I watched that movie, it changed my life. It changed how I think about race. I think about that movie on the reg, at least several times a week. Some thought that runs through my head, or some interaction that I'm a part of or witness makes me think about that movie and makes me question my own motives. So kudos to Crash for doing that. However, now that our nation has changed a lot in 20 years, I really would like to watch Crash again and see if it's aged well versus what parts of it are just cringy now. It was probably written and directed by a white person, so I'm sure it probably misses some big picture things, but at the same time, but I still think it did a great service because it gave me a lot of pause to think about some of my own mental hurdles, mental justifications I go through when I'm out in the world interacting with people of other races, or even my own race. To further talk about me and my own legacy of racism means I need to talk about where I have been very complacent or flat out guilty of racism. The only defense I could try to argue is ignorance, and that's not a defense. I held some really killer Halloween parties once upon a day. And this is college, so this was 20 years ago. We had our first Halloween party in 1999. And that party, a guy I don't know, honestly, I don't even know who he knew that he ended up coming to our party. I never saw him after that. I'd never seen him before that. Seemed like a really chill guy. He came as Black Jesus. He was a white blonde man. And he came in blackface. He had his Jesus robe on and brown makeup all over his face. He was in blackface. And I remember not knowing whether I was mostly bothered by him being in blackface or him coming as Jesus. I didn't kick him out of my apartment. Should have kicked him out of my apartment. When we talked to him throughout the night, he was super gentle spoken. He seemed really nice. I think some people did call him on the sacrilegious vibe of coming as Jesus to a Halloween party. And that coming in blackface as Jesus was just super weird. And he kind of laughed it off as just being edgy. Also, the next Halloween party was in 2000, and we did not have anyone come in blackface, which is nice. But to this day, one of my best friends, she is a police officer. She is a black woman who is a police officer. There are two things about this party that stand out, embarrassingly so. One, we lived in an upstairs apartment. It was a big landing. And so we kept the keg up there. So you just walk up the stairs and boom, right there on our balcony was the keg. True to college party. That's where everybody was hanging out. My girlfriend came up the stairs straight from work. She was late to the party and she came in her uniform just because she left work for no other reason. According to everybody, her and the other guests who were there, she got to the top of the stairs and just like in a movie, everybody went silent. And our friend Ben explained to me, laughing hysterically, they all panicked because they thought the police had come to bust the party up. And she told me she thought that when she got to the top of the stairs, everybody went silent and was staring at her. And she said very quietly to me, I thought they were all staring at me because I'm black. Again, tucked that into the bank of experiences that I need to remember. There's a reason she felt that way. She didn't feel that way in a bubble. She felt that way because she's experienced that before. She felt that way because of a lifetime of experiences. Her own bank has been flooded, not with paranoia over the color of her skin, but a reason to be paranoid about the color of her skin. That's important to remember. And on a deeply I'm guilty note, that same party, that same year, I was dressed in, I don't even know if cultural appropriation is the proper word. What I did was blatantly racist. And I wasn't trying to mock a culture, even though if you saw photos of it, you would definitely think that I was, because I did a really poor job at it. I was a geisha for Halloween that year. I think that's the same year that Memoir of a Geisha had actually come out. And I've had, since a very young age, kind of a fascination, like many people do, a fetishization. Can't say the word. You know what I'm saying. And of Asian culture and the concept of geisha without actually knowing the historical importance of a geisha. I just thought they were really pretty. And when I was a little girl, I remember telling my mom that I wanted to grow up to be one because I thought they were beautiful and special. So for Halloween that year, I very hastily, over the course of a day, used my very bad sewing skills and the remnant fabrics I had, and I made my own kimono, which was not pretty and not flattering. And I got cheap white paint and red lipstick and like acrylic paint. And I painted my face, and I was a very unattractive and misguided geisha. So I managed to have a friend who, because of her black skin, feeling very uncomfortable and even somewhat threatened at my party for a brief moment, as well as me wearing something that would have probably badly offended and hurt some Asian people. Nobody, big party, nobody thought talking about appropriation. I didn't know about appropriation. I didn't know the word cultural appropriation phrase. I didn't know the phrase cultural appropriation. And there I was, dressed like a ding-dong, showing off my total white entitlement. That's probably the most blatant thing that I personally have done. We can't embody the way that makes us feel. It's like living with chronic, constantly reinforced PTSD over simply existing. But even among my own friends as an adult, just a few years ago, and this is another level of my guilt, a few years ago, a bunch of us were in a car together. A lot of us had not seen each other in a long time. And one person in the car, who's known for kind of being a joker, started talking about some of his black co-workers and employees. He was definitely talking for them in a very slave to slave master voice, and nobody laughed. Everybody in the car went silent, and it didn't end. His commentary about whatever he was talking about with work went on and on and on. And he's usually good at reading a room, and for some reason wasn't, and nobody was reacting. The rest of us were stone cold silent because it was so horrible and awkward, and we all knew it. I don't know if he was trying to push us to a point where somebody would finally say something. I don't know if he had like a rebuttal lined up, or if he just kind of dove off the deep end and thought that was a normal way to talk about people. It was really nauseating. Our silence was nauseating. I wasn't driving the car. I didn't want to be the person who like super wrecked the mood. That's kind of who I am anyhow. I didn't want to be the person yet again who like Florida mood by saying that wasn't cool. But I knew when we got out of the van that I should have. That somebody fucking should have. And I vowed that I would never sit with somebody again who was making comments like that without speaking up and telling them that wasn't cool. On top of our complacency, our silence that was allowing that to happen, our complicitness in it, our co-signing of his racism, is that there were 2 young children in the car also. Little kids are sponges. By us not speaking up, not only do we allow racism to exist, not only did we not, in a cosmic sense, stand up for Black people, no one in that car did, we allowed 2 young sponges to absorb, in some capacity, the vibrations and the words from this one man's monologue. And I am very embarrassed about that. So what can we do? That's like the big question. Besides canceling ourselves and outing all of our grievances, as I have annoyingly done here, what can we do to make a difference? There are a lot of good answers out there. Like I said, there are educators out there. But, part of it is talking to white people who may be harboring racism, talking to them about it, and even declaring our own guilt. But first and foremost, before making it about ourselves, we need to listen. We need to listen to people who say they are victims of racism, to say they have suffered racism and racial inequalities and racial injustice. We need to listen to them, hear them, believe them. We need to think about what they're telling us and realize that is not in a vacuum. When a 20-year-old, when a 30-year-old, when a 40-year-old tells you they experience racism, realize they have been for their whole life. So whatever you're seeing is not an example of one time that they're in a store and being followed. It's an example of the last 15 years of their adult life, of them walking in stores and being followed. But you have to listen to people when they say they are experiencing something and realize it's deeply ingrained. They have gone through this over and over. And by dismissing it, we are compounding it. Think of your worst pain. Think of something you feel. Try to imagine back to a time that you told somebody that they had hurt you, or that you had been hurt by someone, and the person you're telling dismissed it. And it just freaking compounds the pain. It re-gushes that wound. Now imagine being told over and over and over again by lots of people that your pain isn't real, that your experience isn't real enough to them. So what else can I do? What else can you do besides listening and hearing, which is so important? We need to start talking. And not by talking rainbow tribe stuff of not seeing color. We need to stop supporting conversations like that. We need to stop supporting conversations of all lives matter. Duh. Frickin' duh. Life matters. Life matters. This is a big duh. If you can't say Black lives matter, then you don't mean that all lives matter. If you can't say Asian lives matter, then you can't say that all lives matter. If you can't come out and say Hispanic lives matter, then you can't say all lives matter. Yes, injustices are happening to people of all different ethnicities, but primarily to all of the minorities, the people of color. Atrocities are happening to them left and right, and we are allowing them to happen by making stupid comments about how all lives matter. Why are our panties in a wad trying to say Black lives matter? Black lives matter, that Black lives are sacred, that Black lives are beautiful, and that we do that with Hispanic lives and Asian lives also, because especially with our current presidency, we are in a place where people who don't feel that Black lives matter and don't feel that Asian lives matter and don't feel that Hispanic lives matter are flying their freak flags And it is time that we let them know those flags are not okay, that we do not support them because Black lives are sacred. End of story. When we watch video after video after video, and these are just the ones that are on video, of people's lives being taken from them for no reason other than the color of their skin, we are saying these people are expendable and they don't matter. So I'm going to seek out Black doctors, dentists, small businesses, because people often dismiss them, and people feel like, well, isn't that wrong to shop for a business or a doctor specifically because they're Black? But the answer is no, because they often are discredited because of being a minority. And that's true. I've always sought out women doctors for the same reason. Women dentists, women, it doesn't have to be about my lady parts. I seek out women-owned businesses. So why wouldn't I seek out other minority-owned businesses as well? Because I know they're often discredited at the hands of capitalism. Also, I'm going to stop supporting businesses that don't treat Black consumers like their money matters, like their lives matter. Companies that don't hire Black people, that don't hire Black people to upper-level management positions, companies that don't carry products that work well for people of color. And I can make a difference by putting my dollars in the right businesses, helping grow businesses that support people of different backgrounds and different skin color. And then also, I'm going to call out my friends and my family and strangers who, just like being in the van, that horrible, horrible, awkward silence, because nobody wanted to be horrible and awkward to tell him to shut up. We just all hoped he would figure out to shut up. He would read the room, and he didn't. You know what? It was already horrible and awkward, so we just needed to tell him, you can't say those things. And not because it's not politically correct. You can't say those things because it's wrong. It's wrong to say those things. So I'm going to start calling people out, and sometimes that will make you a target. That will make you lose friends. That will not go over well always. You'll sleep better at night, and you'll be making a difference in the world by calling people out and helping them realize. Oh, I never came back around to talking about Dad. Let me just put it this way. Over the years, my dad became friends with Black people and Hispanic people, and that was really a freaking awesome experience because he ended up supporting Amnesty and DACA, and my dad ended his life in a place of love. He loved people. He believed that all lives matter, not the slogan. He believed that Black lives matter and that Hispanic lives matter, and I'm just thankful that he finished on that note. And I'm going to speak about him because it helps people remember if we talk about things together, we can change. We really can, but it takes time. I don't know the answers, but it's a starting point. And I think that's what we really have to do, right? We've got to own our share in it and step up to the plate and make differences and stop expecting Black people to make the change happen. And we need to elect the right people. Elect people into office who care. Not just say they care, but who vote in a way to take care of all their citizens. I've rambled enough. I have no idea how I'm going to edit this hot mess. But I love you and God loves you. And I hope to continue this conversation in a much more concise way soon. And I hope that you're making a difference or feeling a difference and feeling the shift and change. Thank you for sticking in there with me. I'm sorry it's been long. God bless you. I love you. Black Lives Matter.